But let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about the 2023 Plenary Assembly. And what happened was that the Catholic bishops had their annual plenary for 2023. And I'll read again a story from citinewsroom.com that captures something that came out of that. The president of the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference, Reverend Matthew Kwesi Gyamfi, says massive, uncontrolled corruption is suffocating Ghana. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the 2023 Plenary Assembly in the Sunyani Diocese on November 13, 2023, Reverend Gyamfi expressed concern over the country's persistent impoverishment despite its status as an oil producer. He emphasized that debilitating impact of uncontrolled corruption, stating that it seems to be pervasive and almost legalized. Reverend Gyamfi raised critical questions about the efficacy of the current democratic system, which appears to benefit only for a privileged few while leaving the majority of the population behind. Additionally, he pointed out the audacious impunity and arrogance displayed by some politicians in defending corrupt practices. He took a dig at successive governments for the level of deterioration in the country, as well as the surge in corruption. And there's a quote here: both governments keep borrowing, and we're now in a deep financial crisis. Why are we in this economic and financial quagmire? The massive uncontrolled corruption is suffocating the nation. It appears corruption is legalized. What should Ghanaians do, since the existing form of democracy helps only a few and leaves the majority behind? What about the impunity and arrogance of some politicians and their defense of corruption? Should the constitution not be changed or bettered to work for all Ghanaians instead of for a few? Should the legal system not be re-equipped to uproot corruption? What about our parliament? Where's the interest of the people? It's sacrificed there for personal and party interest. Why have we not implemented the findings of the Constitutional Review Committee? Can the governments explain to us why we are in this economic mess? What explanations can the two political parties give the Ghanaians for the unfavorable agreements we sign on our oil, minerals, power generation, etc.? Countries that have these resources in abundance are rich. Why do we remain poor? Ghanaians no longer accept the old explanations that governments of Ghana have been giving us. And so that's the story there. Very passionate words from Reverend Gyamfi at the plenary. So I'll come to you, Ellen, because your government is in power at the moment, even though he's mentioned successive governments, he's mentioned the NPP, he's mentioned the NDC. What's your take on this? I mean, corruption has been a big conversation in Ghana, and it's a global problem. However, it seems as though in our country, we've not been able to get a hold of it and rein it in. What do you have to say about it?
I have three opinions, or let me say three issues to talk about in this matter. I would address this from one, our social life as Ghanaians, and where the politicians he's complaining about, which he has a right to, come from. The politicians are a subset of the general society. Absolutely. And you should see how, as a society, we condone corruption. And so what we are seeing up there is what he thinks is so bad. It's just something that has run through the system. BEC results have just come out. The computer placement system is going to place students according to your grades, and you know they have a whole way of doing these things. I can bet you we are going to get parents, and some of those parents are Catholics, who would be calling people and be paying bribes to have their children put on in certain schools when they know that their grades are not supposed to be there. When there are issues related, we have a home. And I'm happy Madam is here because she's been a former minister of gender. Issues related to women and children, especially when it comes to defilement, it comes to rape, you would get a software, including some Catholic priests and other priests, plus our traditional heads who go and take the case out of the police stations and come and settle it at home. So we are building. And then when it's time for us to get into our politics and choose our leaders, we'll have delegates of both political parties, party members, who are also, I believe there are some Catholics in there, who would demand money from these people who are going for elections and all that before they vote for them. So as I said, it is a process and how our whole society is built up. And he does have every right to complain, of course. We've moved from, as he said, a place where we are under so many military regimes. And Ghanaians decided in 1992, per our constitution, that we're no more interested. So we want to have a democracy. We've run this democracy for slightly over 30 years.
That's right.
I do agree with him that we do need to change a few things in there. My particular agreement with him is the perception of corruption that you give to the politicians. I'm not saying that some politicians are not corrupt. Of course, we are human beings, and definitely there will be some who are corrupt. But the politics and the political system is built on another system, and that is the civil service, the public service. My particular issue is even with Article 71 holders.
So now you have to clarify this for us. For which article are you referring
yes,
to?
Is it 71, the ex gratia that we give? The politicians, most of the time, the maximum that a politician can stay, that is if your government stays in power, and for the past 30 years, it's been 8 years, is that maybe if you are kept in a certain position for 8 years or you rotate in the same government, you get the ex gratia. But we do have some public servants and civil servants who every 4 years, as we are doing the changes for the politicians, they receive. And they will go on retirement when they are 60 years. So I keep on saying that assuming somebody becomes the head of a place like NCCA at 40 years, that person is not a politician. But every 4 years, as we are looking at the ex gratia of the politicians, that person too is looked at. And so that person will collect every single 4 years until that person decides to leave the job or is 60 years. Are we looking at all those ones? Our civil service, our chief directors, what goes in there? The real corruption is there. And then when the politicians come, they train them, in quotes. So if you're not somebody who has your own mind on what you want to do, or you come with strong convictions, it is very easy for you to be influenced. Okay, so as much as Osofo, I agree that the political system, I agree that we have a problem. The problem starts from there. And all these people too go to church. Most of them, I'm sure, some of them are Catholics.
And we have to take a break. Hold your thoughts because I'll come back to you. Let's go for a break. It's still Breakfast Daily here, and it's the news review segment. We'll be right back.
African Bitcoin Conference is back in 2023 and it promises to be bigger and better than ever before. Join us from the 1st to 3rd December at Kempinski Hotel in Accra, Ghana, the arena of the Accra International Conference Center, for a 3-day event that will bring together high-profile personalities in the fintech industry. Network with like-minded individuals, attend insightful talks, and learn from some of the brightest minds in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So mark your calendars. The African Bitcoin Conference, 1st to 3rd December at the Kempinski Hotel and the Accra International Conference Center Arena in Accra, Ghana. Don't miss it.
Masterline Services presents Abiana live in concert with the launch of Taste of Africa EP, a night of good music, show-stopping performance from Africa's finest vocalist, Abiana. Date, November 24, 2023. Venue, Alliance Francaise, Accra. Rate, 100 cities. Discover amazing surprises from a hot lineup of performers on the night. Amanziba Nadbru, Kwabena, Episode, Walasi, Famie, Ochiame Kwame, Flowy from Eswatini. Don't miss this great night as we prepare to go high. Abiana live in concert with the launch of Taste of Africa EP. Dial star 711 star 11 star 26 hash to get tickets. Media partners Citi FM, Citi TV, 3 Music, Asasi, YFM, Metro TV, Ghana Web. See you there.
Welcome back. It's still Breakfast Daily right here on Citi TV. And don't forget, the show is interactive. Use the hashtag Breakfast Daily across all social media platforms. We will hear you, we will see you, and we'll let the world know what you're thinking. And use the WhatsApp line 020-444-7033. Prefix the number with the country code +233 if you are texting us from beyond the shores of Ghana. We've been speaking about a number of things. Before we went on the break, Ellen Daku, who is a communications member for the team member for the NPP, was just giving her submission on what she thinks about the 2023 plenary assembly, where the Catholic bishops made a very emphatic statement that uncontrolled corruption is suffocating Ghana. So we'll go back to her. Before then, there's a message here. As for corruption, we're tired of hearing about it. Everybody talks about it. No one wants to do anything. Politicians talk about it. They don't do anything. Were we not here when our president said he would have a zero tolerance for corruption? Here we are. There are corrupt people in our churches. Nobody says anything. There are corrupt people in our schools. Nobody says anything. There are corrupt people in every aspect of our society, and nobody talks about it. Let's continue playing the ostrich, and we'll all be corrupt together. That's from Danso, all the way from Sunyai. But yes, I think he's in agreement with Ellen that we see the corruption everywhere. So I'll give the floor back to you.
The fact that there's corruption everywhere doesn't mean that we should leave it as it is. If any corrupt activity is brought into the open, we should have structures in place that deals with it. And that is where I believe the Catholic Bishop Conference should have made a distinction between the two political parties. At least this particular government, President Akufo-Addo brought in the office of the special prosecutor with all his issues, and we've had some of us even believe that that office actually targets more of people in government than people who are out of government. And the latest issues with Madam Cecilia Dapa and how it is going tells you that this government is very serious about corruption. If it does come out that there are any issues of corruption related to you, it will be investigated. But then people also have to understand that the name of the evidence, the name of the game is evidence. If you're saying somebody is corrupt, you should have something to prove. You just don't get up and say, Ellen is corrupt. What have I done? What is your proof? So that is one angle that we'll look at it. And then he also went into our social services and the fact that we are a mineral-rich country and we are going through so much agreements we signed over the years and how it is not helping Ghana. I do agree on some aspect, but let's also not forget that these agreements we sign it per international standards. So what goes on in the general industry, I believe most of our leaders actually do take time to make sure that these things, at least we get the best out of it. The world is not an equal place. It has never been. If it were, we wouldn't have had slavery. So it is not equal. But the point is you need to get the best out of it. And putting the two political parties together, I totally disagree with him. At least the NPP, every time we have been in office, and we use from President Kufuor all the way till Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we've done things that show you that we have the people of Ghana at heart. President Kufuor started with a health insurance scheme, plus all the other social interventions. You don't have to like the MPP. You don't have to like Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. But his free SHS has been working since 2017. And over 1.2 million Ghanaian children have benefited. Compare that to our brothers and sisters on the other side. I keep on asking them, what just one social intervention scheme can they talk about? They don't have any. So, Papa Osofo, I beg you, you can do your comparisons, but there's a huge difference between the NPP and the NDC. When the NPP is in power, we think about the people of Ghana. We bring in policies that will make sure that all people benefit in a way. from a social setting we are going through. Our brothers and sisters on the other side, I don't know what they do. Don't compare us, we are not the same.
Before I come to Nanoye, but there have been a lot of concerns. I mean, you mentioned free SHS. I mean, I personally travel around the country. I see, yes, there are more young people in school. It's brilliant. People who never even thought they would have an opportunity to enter SHS, they're in school. But there are challenges.
Of course,
with
there will
the
be
quality,
challenges.
with even
There's
you
no
know,
way
the way
you
it's
would
rolled
have.
out.
There's no way you have a system for anything that there will not be any challenges. We are a human system. What is important is that these challenges come up, and how do we deal with them? Do we deal with them? For the past 7 years, this government has been dealing with every challenge that comes up with free SHS, from food shortages to accusations of us. If you remember, one of the members of parliament, Mr. Pak, came accusing government of putting students in refurbished toilets, which were not true, and to issues of you do remember the 2-track system that were run because the children, every single thing that has come up, every single challenge that has come up has been addressed. Are we going to have more challenges? Yes. But then that doesn't mean that because you have challenges, you do not bring out policies that will help your people. How do you address those challenges when they come? National health insurance have always had challenges. They address them. As I said, he cannot compare the two political parties. We are very different.
Okay, so your point is that the challenges will come, but take the bold step to implement the policy.
Definitely.
Okay. Nanoye.
Yeah, thank you very much. The president of the Catholic Conference, Bishop Matthew Jamefi, was commenting on the then and now. He was commenting on our economic situation as it is now in October, November 2023. And this is his concern and his observation. As a Catholic bishop, he uses very strong words to describe the state of decay in Ghana presently under the MPP government. He talks about massive, uncontrolled corruption suffocating Ghana. Massive, uncontrolled corruption. All these adjectives in one. That is his description of corruption in Nana Addo Dankwa's presidency and the MPP presently. This is the state of corruption. The corruption under MPP government is massive. The corruption under MPP government is uncontrolled. And the corruption under MPP government is suffocating, strangling, suffocating Ghana. And it is very clear the impact of this corruption. We have a president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. When the police, Ghana Police Service, have found, or whoever, a minister, a cabinet minister has reported that $1 million that she kept in her bedroom has been stolen. And there's a hue and an uproar and a cry in Ghana. The president does not even dismiss her. The president graciously waits for Honorable Cecilia Dapa to resign, accepts her resignation letter, and espouses her integrity and the fact that she'll come out clean. Regrettable. And that is why the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference is describing the corruption in Ghana as massive, uncontrolled, and suffocating. We have a situation where we have the most expensive hole that has been dug, a cathedral of lies, a scandalous cathedral, millions of dollars. Cabinet, Parliament did not approve of certain payments. The Minister of Finance went ahead and paid. We have corruption, and we have a situation where the Bank of Ghana blatantly ignores and disregards laws on the extent to which it can loan money. It can give money to government. The minimum threshold is 5%, goes beyond 5%. Governor of Bank of Ghana says that they approved of building of their headquarters in 2017. Now you have declared bankruptcy as the central bank. Never in the history of Ghana. You have 60 billion or 60 plus billion or million debt and all that. And you're still focused and dedicated to constructing your headquarters. That is going to cost us so much money. The economy is in a mess. And what is the impact? We have the World Bank report on poverty in Ghana that was issued about just a few weeks ago, talking about inflation and the fact that we have 850,000 individuals who have now fallen into poverty. And about a quarter of households across board are in crisis in terms of 3 square meals a day. The cost of living has gone up. And so it's not just to say that this is pervasive or comes from our society. After all, we have a president who declared before Ghanaians zero tolerance for corruption. But he has ticked all his ministers, all his officers who were enmeshed in one form of corruption or the other. What has happened to them? And the bishop talks about impunity. And we have also spoken to impunity and the arrogance that is displayed by public officers and by the politicians and MPP in government. This is what the bishop is talking about. We have spoken, NDC has spoken about family and friends, and he echoes that too. The whole government of family and friends, the high levels of borrowing, the economic mess. This is the quagmire. MPP campaigned, made certain promises, and they have failed Ghana miserably. And not only NDC, not only several commentators, several personalities have said that the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is the worst president, is the most inefficient president, and he carries on like he has checked out. It's like he has, I don't know who he has handed over to, but he's checked out in terms of his responsibility as president of Ghana. And is just sitting back and just watching everything just fall into crumbles, just fall into pieces. And so whatever the president of the Catholic bishop is saying resonates. This is something that Ghanaians have said. People are crying and people are dying. Look at what happened with the renal unit, the dialysis at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Nothing was done about it. And the bishop talks about the impunity and the arrogance. Barely 2 weeks later, what do we see? The vice president of Ghana is able to mobilize more than 80 million cedis to pay delegates. And he says he wants to be the next president of Ghana when he cannot even, how much did the dialysis unit need? Barely 4 million. But for his selfish personal ambitions, he doled out 80 plus million and couldn't even mobilize 4 million to give to the dialysis unit of Kolebu Teaching Hospital to prevent deaths. And over the period that the dialysis unit was not working, Ghanaians died. And this speaks to the massive, uncontrolled corruption under the MPP government that is suffocating Ghana. This is regrettable.
No, Reverend Jemfi also mentions the NDC. He says successive governments have failed at curbing corruption and at letting Ghanaians flourish as a whole, not just a section of Ghanaians or a section of the populace at any point in time. But when you look at Ghana as Ghanaians, as we are, as the whole, we need to be, flourishing and thriving together, and that doesn't happen. And you took a dig at your government as well. I mean, the government under which you served as minister. What's your take on that?
My take is that the NDC government, as a social democratic government that is people-oriented, that seeks the welfare of Ghanaians, did a lot better and focused on the welfare of Ghanaians, focused on getting jobs for Ghanaians, and focused on a living standard, a reasonable living standard. And the data is there. Under President John Evans Atta Mills, we were the fastest growing economy. We're the fastest growing economy. We look at infrastructure development. We look at even infrastructure within our healthcare system. We look at the hospitals that were constructed. We look at education, tertiary education, conversion of polytechnics into technical universities, creation of 2 universities, the natural resources in Sunyani and UHAS in Ho. We looked at the numbers over 100 senior high schools under President John Dramani Mahama. We look at the healthcare facilities, polyclinics, hospitals, tertiary hospitals that were provided. We look at road infrastructure. And we look at even infrastructure, the airports, Kumasi Airport, Tamale Airport, Terminal 3, and several others. And we look at the economy. Let's look at inflation. Let's look at the dollar rates. Let's look at fuel prices, and let's make a comparison. And it will tell you that under NDC, as a social democratic, people-oriented and sensitive to the needs of the people, NDC did much better. We look at the dollar rates. And when we were leaving in 2016, it was a $3.90. 2017, $4.40. 2023, as at 2nd November 2023, $11.90. This is where MPP has led the dollar. And we know the heavy reliance on imports. And we know what that would mean in terms of prices in Ghana. And this World Bank report on poverty even talks about the fact that the poorest 20% of the population lost 16.1% of their purchasing power. We look at the population and the population census, and it tells you that we have millions of people who are currently, and I think it's about 10 or 11 million or so, I'm not sure, that are currently unemployed in Ghana. And this is under MPP. And this all speaks to the corruption under MPP and the suffocation under MPP, the impunity by MPP government officials, the arrogance by MPP government officials.
Ellen, did you want to react to that?
Oh, of course I would react. We are talking about a political party in whose time the president was asked on an international firm whether he himself was corrupt or not, and he couldn't even define whether he was corrupt or not, and deny whether he was corrupt. He was asking whether they were asking him whether he was corrupt as a human being or as a president. We are talking about someone whose own president at that time, when he was vice president, did not trust him enough to put him on the economic management team. What he did was to put him in charge of development of his own region. And that's when the SADA matter was created. And they came to tell us that $50 million that was given to people to rear guinea fowl flew to Burkina Faso. That is the person we are talking about. We are talking about somebody who went to plant trees in the hot season in the savannah region and the northern regions, where we all know that they have different weather conditions, and there are times we can plant trees, and the money and everything went by. That's the sort of person we are talking about. And you are comparing him to Mr. Akufo-Addo. Let's even leave it. Somebody who said, I'll build 200 community day schools and built less than 20. It has taken this government to add an extra 20 to it, 20 more, finish what they started, which they couldn't. He said 200. You gave contracts for them, you started, you couldn't even finish. 20 schools you couldn't. This government has come, and with free SHS and all the thing that is going on, your ones that you started, we are gradually finishing it. The health ministry gave, the education ministry has given a comprehensive look at what they came to meet and what we have done. We are talking about a government in whose time they told us that when we spoke about the teacher training allowances that helped people, you looked us in the face and told us you cancel it, and you canceled it. And when people were agitating about it, the president told us that even if it cost him his presidency, he will cancel it, which he did. With all this government is still paying. Yes, there are delays, I totally agree, but we are still paying. Now, through all this, your government at that time never faced in the world a pandemic. We didn't go through all the hell that all of us have been through in the past 2 years. And you are comparing both governments. If we're talking about corruption, we are talking about a government where our players, sports, Black Stars flew to the World Cup in Brazil. We flew money, $3 million, put it in a private jet and sent it to them. When they came and an inquiry was set up and we're asking, the person who went to drink coconut for $200 came to sit there and cried. And instead of the president sacking him, took him into the Jubilee House as Minister of State. That's what we are talking about. We are talking about a place where the president was accused, and it's not the opposition at that time who said it. It was a journalist who said the president at that time had taken a vehicle for giving out a contract. What did you hear about it? You are comparing this to a time where the sitting president makes sure that his ministers, and as I said when I started, the OSP, most of us in the MPP thinks that he's actually meant for the MPP and not for the rest of Ghanaians. He is on the case of MPP appointees and MPP ministers. Immediately something is said about you, this man will start writing you letters and you come and explain. This is the government we are talking about. So if you're going to be here comparing, and then I think I heard her say something about completing some schools. The schools you guys started, you couldn't done. This government, through the Ministry of Education, look at the STEM schools that we are bringing. There are 10 STEM schools that are on. 6 are on board as we speak. And the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, all the other ministries are in this together. Look at the mess we came to pick up from when there was no COVID, common cholera that even hit us. 200 people died in Greater Accra from cholera in your time. You couldn't even manage that system. Ghanaians saw all this. Look at the doom so we slept in for 4 solid years. And then you come and tell us that you couldn't provide us electricity for 4 years and you had to go into opposition. Somebody has come, is keeping the lights on. You are telling us that we should bring you again so that you come and run a 24-hour economy. And the question I keep asking, with which is electricity? Are you going to run it? Please. So please, if you're going to do a comparison with everything that has even hit all Ghanaians, led by the NPP in the last 3 years, and we will not sweep COVID under the table. COVID was terrible. Our whole economy went on a break for a whole 9 months. And for these 9 months, all government workers, teachers, nurses sat at home and they were still paid. In your time, you picked teachers, they taught for 3 years and you paid them for 3 months. Up till today, you didn't pay them.
Okay, and we have to wrap this up because we're ending this at 9. Nanoye, did you want to add to that briefly?
She obviously knows that what she's saying are fabrications and they are lies, and the data that she's giving in terms of e-blocks built is not true. She knows NDC in terms of e-blocks, in terms of infrastructure within the education sector, has done better than all governments. She knows that what she's saying about President John Dramani Mahama is false and it's not true. nothing of that sort occurred. And yes, at that point in time, the NDC had done research and knew that we had to cancel the allowances. And though it was a hard decision, we took that decision and cancelled. And so what I'll say is that the evidence is clear in terms of which government, MPP government, is corrupt, has mismanaged the economy, talked about debt under NDC, but has borrowed more money than any other government. So it is very clear that it is the MPP that has mismanaged the economy of Ghana, and it is the MPP that is corrupt. And it is the MPP that has taken 850,000 Ghanaians into poverty in 2023.
Okay, we need to wrap this up. Ladies, thank you. This has been a news review segment on Breakfast Daily. I've been joined today by Ellen Amadakun. She's an MPP. Oh, Deku. So it's Deku. Sorry about that. Oh, you didn't tell me all
It doesn't
this.
matter.
It matters. So Ellen Amadakun, she's an MPP National Communications team member, and Nanoye Bampoado, former Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection under the NDC.